Let's start lesson 1. Always be polite. Good words define a person in a positive way, whereas bad or rude words define a person in a negative way. One should be polite and gentle and speak only sweet words to please someone. It is a very important aspect in our life. We must learn to talk politely and softly to elders. One sweet word shows our affection, confidence, and respect and also makes us popular. We should often use words like thank you, please, and sorry. These words are magic words. Speaking harsh words will lead to less friends. If we speak harsh words to anyone, the person would not forget and dislike us. Words once spoken can never be taken back. Everyone hates rudeness. We should never boast or talk rudely. If we will be polite to everyone, it makes us peaceful and we win respect and love of others also. It does not cost us anything to be polite. Instead, it enriches our personality. So, we should be polite and considerate towards everyone. Everyone expects from us the same respectful behavior as we expect from others. Our sweet words and polite behavior will persuade others to do the same. Read the following story to find out how. Once there was a king. One day he went for hunting with his ministers. They went quite far off in the jungle. All of them were exhausted and thirsty. So they decided to stop and take rest. Everyone was looking for water. Soon they found a hut of an old hermit. The king ordered one of the ministers to go to the hut and bring some water. The minister went inside and told hermit, "Oh, you blind man, give me some water." The old hermit said, "But I have no water." The minister returned without water to the king. The king then sent his another minister. The minister went to the old man and said, "Give me some water immediately." The old hermit repeated, "I have no water." The king decided to go himself. He went inside the hut and said, "Sir, please give me some water to drink. It will be very kind of you." The old hermit said, "Oh king, please come inside and have as much water as you want. You can also take rest in my hut if you wish." The king was surprised to see the hermit's behavior. He asked him why he refused to give water to his ministers. The old hermit replied, "Their tone was harsh and impolite. I could recognize from your sweet and polite words that you are a king. This proves the fact that every person is known by his style of speaking." Let's start lesson 2. The dangers of greed. High up among the mountains of Japan, once there lived an old man. He was not happy because his wife was older than him and she had very bad temper. She always kept shouting at him. The poor man had only one friend, a tame sparrow. His wife abused and ill-treated even that little bird. One day, the old man was off to the field. His wife was at her wash tub. She made some starch and she put it in a wooden bowl to cool. The pet sparrow made a hearty meal of it. The old woman cut off the tip of bird's tongue with a pair of scissors. "That will teach you a lesson," she shouted. "Now be off and never come back." When the old farmer returned, he was very sad and angry with his wife. The two quarreled far into the night. The man had no chick or child to cheer his sad heart. Several months later, the old farmer was up in the mountains. He saw his old sparrow, who chirped, "Good morning." It could now speak as humans do. It had a wife and two daughters. They lived in a bamboo house in the middle of a garden. The sparrow took the old man to his house and offered him candy and custard to eat and several cups of tea to drink. One day it brought out two baskets, one heavy and the other light. It requested the old man to accept one as a parting gift. The old man was not greedy. He chose the light one and took leave of his host. Back home, he told his wife about his adventure. They opened the box. It contained a purse that was always full of money and so many jewels. They became rich. The old woman also decided to go to the sparrow to get a present. The sparrow family was not pleased to see the cruel woman. They knew what she had come for. They also told her to choose one of the two baskets. She chose the heavy one and returned to her cottage very excitedly. She tore off the lid, but instead of jewels, a host of giant bats flew out and stung her. She died. The old farmer, a wealthy widower, adopted a son to comfort him in old age. He always pointed out to the boy the dangers of greed. Let's start lesson 3. The tiger. Tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forest of the night. What immortal hand or eye could frame thy fearful symmetry? In what distant deeps or skies burnt the fire of thine eye? On what wings dare he aspire? What the hand dare seize the fire? When the stars drew down their spears and watered heaven with their tears, did he smile his work to see? Did he who made the lamp make thee? Tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forest of the night, what immortal hand or eye dare frame thy fearful symmetry? Let's start lesson 4. Jim Corbett. Jim Corbett was one of the greatest hunters of India. He was not interested in shooting for sport. He shot only ferocious animals like man-eating animals whom he killed had devoured 400 human beings. Jim had a knack for hunting. He managed to learn catapult by himself. Then he knew archery, and even at the tender age of 8, he learned how to use an old broken gun. Jim considered himself to be lucky enough to have lived in a place called Kaladungi, which was situated in the middle of dense forest. In the vicinity of his house were two ponds. A variety of animals went to these ponds to drink water. It was the place where Jim learned his maiden lesson in tracking. To begin with, he found the tracks very confusing. The tracks of young Sambar and the blue bull had much similarity. Moreover, he also failed to spot the tracks of hyenas and wild dogs and those of leopards. Since he watched each and every animal avidly, he became so good at this that he could make out from the track of a snake whether the snake was poisonous or not. He took night shelter in order to hear the calls of different animals. Soon he learned to recognize the call of each animal. He developed skills that each animal gives call for different purposes. The call that the mother deer gives to her young ones to come to her to feed them is different from her call to warn the herd that a tiger is coming close. Jim learned to walk barefoot in the forest without making the slightest noise. He taught himself to climb trees. He trained his eyes to jungles. One day, he saw a cobra stung in a hole of a hollow tree, just as it was about to strike him. He quickly moved away. Another time, he saw a leopard through a bush just as it was going to spring on him. Jim even learned to mimic the calls of animals and birds. He could imitate the growl of a tiger and leopard so well that often the tiger mistook the road for that of its mark. As a young boy, Jim was very scared of the dark. His elder brother Tom taught him to overcome this fear in the hard way. One evening, Tom took him for bear shooting. Leaving him alone in the glowing ravine, which was known to be the home of many bears, Tom returned home, but Jim sat trembling there with fear that he would be taken by a bear. When he actually saw one, he almost died of fright, but he stuck to his post. Next morning, when Tom came to fetch him, Jim did not tell him how scared he had been, but from that day he lost his fear of the dark. Jim started staying out all night in the jungle. He would make a fire with some dry twigs and then lie down beside it. If he heard a tiger growling close by, he just threw another stick into the fire and went back to sleep. In the morning, he would get up and start wandering around the jungle, taking in all its secrets and wisdom. Jim often went hunting with his pet dog Robin. They shared many exciting ventures together. When Jim first set his eyes on Robin, who was then only a dirty 3-month-old puppy, he did not want to keep him. But the puppy came and curled over his feet and liked him so lovingly that he decided to keep him. He took him home, where he gave him a warm water bath and some milk to drink. He was such a friendly and intelligent dog that Jim began to train Robin to retrieve birds. So, when he was old enough, he took him along for his first hunt. It handled in some dry bushes and Robin dashed after it. After some time, he returned dragging the wounded bird between his teeth. A few days later, they were walking back home when Robin saw a big troop of langurs. Robin dashed after a langur which promptly climbed a tree. Jim whistled to call Robin back, but the dog did not listen to his whistle. He chased the langours. A little distance away were some bushes, behind which was a deep ditch. Robin had hardly entered those bushes when he came running out again, his tail tucked between his legs. A huge leopard was running after him. Jim was not carrying a gun and he could not save his dog. The langurs were calling loudly from the trees. The leopard came closer and closer to Robin, and just when he was within reach of Robin, he turned and disappeared the other side. Robin learned two very important lessons that day, which he never forgot in his life. First, never to disobey his master's whistle, and secondly, never to chase langurs. He also learned that when langurs gave a warning call, it meant that a leopard was nearby. After that day, Robin always obeyed Jim's orders. He learned to walk as silently as a cat does in the jungle. He also learned to pay no heed to any animal or bird except the one they are hunting. Robin remained alive to the ripe age of 13, and his grave can still be seen in Jim Corbett National Park at Kaladume. Let's start with Lesson 5. The Happy Prince. There was a prince who had everything he wanted. So he was never sad and was called the Happy Prince. But alas, one day he died. His people had a statue made. The statue was made of lead. The two sapphires were studded into his eyes. The statue was put on the top of a tall pillar in the middle of the town. In the country, the winters were very cold. So, every autumn, the swallows flew away to the warmer place. That year, however, one little swallow was the last to leave. The night he came to the town, he stopped to rest on top of the top pillar, right between the feet of the Happy Prince. The little swallow was just going off the seat when a drop of water fell on his head. He looked up and saw tears falling from the eyes of the statue. "Why are you crying?" asked the swallow. "Because of all the unhappy things I can see in the town. Far off, there is a house in a poor little street," said the prince. "Inside, there is a woman. In a bed close to her, a little boy. He is very ill, but his mother had no money to pay the doctor's fees. I think he is going to die. Little swallow, will you take her the red ruby from my sword? She can sell it and buy food." So the swallow pegged out the ruby and flew off with it. The little swallow flew on till he came to the poor house. The boy was tossing about in his bed, but his mother had fallen asleep with her head on the table. She was so tired. The swallow put the red jewel close by her. Back flew the swallow to tell the prince what he had done. "It is funny," he said, "but I don't feel cold anymore." "That's because you did a good deed," said the prince. All the same, the swallow still wanted to fly away to the warm land where his brothers and sisters had gone. So that night, he said to the prince, "Goodbye, I am off now." "Little swallow," replied the prince, "don't go now. I can see a poor young man in a bare room where there is no fire. He is trying to write, but his hand is too cold to hold the pen, and he has no food to eat. Take out one sapphire studded in one of my eyes. But I cannot do that, cried Swallow. Please do as I ask, begged the prince. So the swallow pecked out one of the sapphire from the statue's eyes and flew with it to the room of the poor young man. He dropped the sapphire into a bunch of flowers on the table. When the young man saw it, he was so pleased that he forgot he was hungry and went on with his work. Now I can pay my rent and buy some food, he said. Back flew the swallow to tell the prince the good news. And now goodbye, he added. Don't go now, pleaded the prince. Look down there. Do you see that little girl? She was trying to sell matches, but her hands were so cold that she had dropped them in the wet, and now they are of no use. Her father will beat her when she gets home. She is crying. You must peck out from my other sapphire and give it to her. But if I do that, you won't be able to see at all, cried the swallow. You will be blind. Please do as I say, begged the prince. So the swallow took the sapphire and dropped it in the little girl's hand. How pretty, she smiled when she saw it. And she ran off home to give it to the father. Back once more flew the swallow. He said to the prince, I cannot leave you now that you are blind. I will stay with you, and you can use my eyes now that you cannot see. The prince wanted the swallow to fly over the town and tell him what he saw. One day, the swallow saw two little boys lying down under a bridge trying to keep one another warm. Along came a policeman and told them to go home. He did not know that they had no home to go. They just got up and went out hand in hand into the rain. When he heard this, the prince was very sad. I have no jewels left, he said, but my clothes are made of gold. You must peck off a bit and give it to those poor children. Every day the swallow saw someone who needed help, and before long all the gold from the prince's clothes had been given away. He stood on the top of his pillar looking dull and grey, but the faces of the poor children were longer white, their cheeks were red, and their thin arms and legs grew nice and round. They no longer had to beg for bread. Goodbye, replied the prince, and something broke inside him. It was his heart. Next day, the mayor and town councillors passed by the pillar and looked up at the statue. Dear mayor, how shabby our prince looks, they cried. He seems to have lost all his jewels, and someone has stolen his gold clothes. And look, there's a dead bird at his feet. We can't have that here. It must be taken away at once. We had better take the statue down too, said another councillor. We will put up a better one in its place. Whose shall we put this time? Mine, of course, said the mayor. They took down the prince's statue and melted the lead to make the new one. But The workmen found a broken heart inside that would not melt. So they threw it on the dust heap where the little dead swallow was lying. That night, God told his angels, "Bring me the two most precious things from town." They brought him the broken heart and the dead swallow. And God said, "You are right. This little bird shall always sing in my garden of paradise." Let's start lesson 6, Sympathy. I lay in sorrow, deep depressed, my grief a proud man heard. His looks were cold, he gave me gold, but not a kindly word. My sorrow past, I paid him back the gold he gave to me, then stood erect and spoke my thanks and blessed his charity. I lay in want and grief and pain, a poor man passed my way. He bound my head, he gave me bread, he watched me night and day. How shall I pay him back again for all he did to me? Oh, gold is great, but greater for is heavenly sympathy. Let's start lesson 7, The Shoe Shine Boy. It was hopeless to remain there in a small village. There was no food, no love, and no future. So, Rohan decided to leave for a big city. Maybe afterwards, one by one, he could take his family also there. He just could not see the hunger and torture his family faced. So, one fine day, Rohan simply ran away. That was 4 years ago. He was only 11 then. From the day he left his house, Rohan had a difficult time. In the beginning, he had no food and no shelter. No one cared for him. He hated begging, so he cleaned cars and floors of shops and served at food stalls. He did whatever he could do honestly for his survival. He slept outside the railway station and made friends with orphan boys and stray dogs. Slowly, he started borrowing shoe polish kits from his friends whenever they were sick or needed a holiday. Within a few weeks, he was able to purchase his own kit. He started traveling in trains, getting paid by passengers to get their shoes polished. At night, he always slept outside the railway station. You must search the empty compartments for leftover things. His friends advised him, sometimes if you are lucky, you get a bedsheet or a food bag. The group decided which pair or trio would go on an inspection of which empty train. Usually, they found nothing except empty plastic bottles or disposable glasses. But sometimes, if they were lucky, they would come across some food item or a forgotten bag. Rohan did not like to take those things. His mother had taught him to earn money by working for it. Only hard work can bring us success. She used to say, begging or stealing cannot open any magic door for us. But his new friends had taught him otherwise. That accepting leftovers was not theft and no sin at all. It would not harm anybody. So, on that lucky night, Rohan with Ravi and Sohan were scheduled to be on the inspection tour of a train at the end of its run. Rohan knew that Ravi was down with fever and Sohan would be trying to get tickets for a new movie that was a box office hit. Maybe He has got the train alone. His eyes searched for leftover things as he went from one compartment to another, when suddenly his eyes fell on a small briefcase lying on an upper berth in a corner. No one could have left that purposely, he thought. So it would be a theft if I take it away with me. Someone must have forgotten it, but another person will grab it if I leave it here. I must give the bag to a responsible person so that the owner will get back. There may be something important in that bag. Thinking thus, Rohan took the bag, but he was afraid to go to the police. He had seen them being rough to people. They may accuse me of stealing it and then put me in jail, he thought. Better I go to the station master. At least he knows that I am not a thief. The station master knew him well. He had earned his goodwill by his honesty and good manners. He would definitely help him in a difficult situation. He was sure of that. So he decided to listen to his inner voice. He took the bag and went to the station master's office. I found this bag in an empty compartment, sir, he said. I wish to hand over to the police so that they can return it to its owners. It took a lot of courage to do that, but he decided to do what he believed to be correct. And his courage paid off. The owner of the briefcase came to lodge a complaint and was happy to get back his briefcase, which contained a lot of money. He rewarded the boy handsomely. The railway people too collected some fund for Rohan. The press published the story of a shoeshine boy, and many welfare associations came forward to felicitate Rohan on Children's Day. Now, Rohan stays in a hostel and studies in a good school. His dream is going to come true. In the near future, he will be able to get a decent job and look after his family.